Welcome to today's episode of Two Pigs in a Pod, a podcast for the people of Glazing by the people of Glazing. I'm George, your host, and it gives me an absolute pleasure to welcome an absolute legend onto our show today. So, hello and welcome to Gary Morton. Hello, Gary.
Hi, George. More like a legend than a legend. But,
No, there's definitely going to
thank
be
you.
people here that know you as a definite legend of our industry.
Well, thank you. It's very kind. Very kind.
But as we always do with our first question of our podcast is for you to introduce yourself and what you're best known within our industry. So who are you and what do you do?
Gosh, what am I best known for? All sorts of things, I guess. I've run 3 or 4 systems houses, PVC systems houses.
Yeah.
I've run 2 or 3 fabricators. I've bought businesses, sold businesses, mainly in the sector, but a couple outside the sector. And recently sold the final acquisition I made in 2015. Recently sold that to the management in May of this year. I remain a director of that business. I chair the board meetings. I attend the sales meetings and the product development meetings, but it's like 3.5 days a month. The team have been, well, in fact, the team have been, were running it way before the sale went through. So we've got a fantastic team there. The business is progressing very, very well. It's obviously got challenges like the whole of the sector at this moment in time, but they're coping with that very well, and they've got some strength in depth, so they're well set.
Nice. And taking it back to the beginning, how did you get into our sector? We always ask people on this podcast, how you first got into it, and a lot of the time it's, I fell into it or I didn't really. But what was your journey into our sector?
Well, very similar, really. I applied for a job. I'd been to France with some mates on the basis that we were kind of emigrating, which is obviously very foolhardy, given that we'd been there 2 or 3 weeks and the other two announced that it was only ever an extended holiday for them. And I'd given up a pretty decent job. I was an apprentice electrician. I'd gone 3 years into that and gave it up because I wanted adventure, and so a pretty foolish move. But came back, got the Thursday night job section in the local paper, and rang around. We lived in a pub actually, and we didn't have a phone as such on its own, but we had a pay phone in the outdoor.
Yeah.
Would you know what an outdoor is?
Yeah.
It's a thing of the past, an outdoor. But so I was in there with my 10 pences, bumping 10 pences into the phone, really applying verbally for jobs. Got invited to an interview with a guy called Jim Patterson at Thermosil Services, and Jim and Brian Worrell, who I remain in touch with, along with Wes Kendrick, who also remain in touch with, only through social media.
Yeah.
But they interviewed me, and then it seemed to have gone really well. It was a job as a service engineer, and I didn't hear anything, and I was really set for this job because it came with a van as well. And
Nice.
I was really set for this job, and I didn't hear anything, so I rang. And the reason I hadn't called was that Gwaine, who obviously has gone on to successfully run Thermosil for many, many years, and then subsequently they sold quite recently, well, in the last few years, had a really terrible motorcycling accident. He limps to this day, actually, Gwaine. And obviously everybody was in disarray and what have you. And he said, so we've not been able to think about it. And I said, well, look, I took a chance. Said, look, you've got enough on your plates. Give me the job and you've got one less thing to think and worry about. And so we went, oh, okay then. Off we went. And I think I went in the following Monday or something like that. And I had a good 5-6 years with Thermosil, and this was the real early days of hot melt machinery. And so after my kind of initial training, I was out just fixing machines, and and they brought out new models. And I think it's a general theme of life that people will always believe an engineer more than they'll believe a salesman.
Yeah.
And so I used to upgrade the machines. I used to get them to upgrade the machines. And Jim and Brian, I think, who was the sales director, cottoned on to this and thought, this guy needs to go out into the field with us. So I went in one day. They gave me a briefcase, 40 bottles of scotch, and a red Cortina estate.
Nice.
Just before Christmas, it was go and introduce yourself to all the customers.
Yeah.
You're our new sales rep. Of course, I was buzzing because it was a newish car, more money. You know, I thought I was it really. So that's how it all started. Anyway, it was with Thermosil, and I had 5 or 6 fabulous years there. And it's obviously progressed and gone on.
Yes, it's amazing to think that, if you didn't make that phone call, where would you have
Well,
been in your, in your career? Would you have gone back to the electrician route, or what? Well, who knows?
but isn't that life
Yeah,
really? It's full of sliding doors moments, isn't it? And I've had no end of those. And you choose one way, and whatever way it is, you try and make it work, don't
yeah,
you? And fortunately, most of them have worked. Some haven't, but most of them have.
yeah. Nice. And then, were there any sort of standout moments, stories that you're allowed to tell from those sort of early years in the industry that sort of really, I guess, kept you in the industry? Because you still was sort of a newbie to it. But is there any moment that you thought, actually, no, I love this industry. I'm staking in it for the long run?
Um, I'm trying to think. There's been lots of little things, I guess, but I think I was headhunted from Thermosil actually and I have to say, in hindsight, it was probably the wrong move, but I I was headhunted by Winner Machinery Sales, and this is when they were based in Coventry with Joe Moore, Derek, God rest his soul, Derek Barnard, and David Stockton Chalk. And they'd taken on this Botero contract, which is glass handling equipment and glass machinery and what have you. So that they wanted me to head that up for them. I mean, I was 25, 26 at the time. I was really still quite young. And so I thought, oh, look at me, kind of thing. I was, and they sent me to Italy on a training course, and that I've always loved. It's my favourite country, Italy. I've always absolutely loved Italy, and this introduction to it is one of the main reasons. But I spent a couple of weeks there. I hadn't long got married either, by the way. But I'd spent a couple of weeks there, and the whole factory floor. I was going to I had a different house to go to every night for dinner, and it made me realise how important family is, and so on and so forth. Which I'd like to think is one I've always been my biggest consideration. But so yeah, that's possibly a moment. I think I could probably give you 20, 30
Yeah,
small
a,
ones.
a whole a whole podcast episode just on stories from the industry.
Yeah, oh god. I've been known to bore people to death for many an hour.
I'm sure that's not the case. But speaking of, you spoke about a few people there that sort of brought you into the industry. But has there been any sort of mentors or stand up people in your career that have sort of really made you who you are?
Yeah, I would say there's two. I've already mentioned one, but I'll spend a bit more time on him. But when I first went to what was Range Valley Engineering, and which we quickly turned into Status Systems, this was in a wretched condition. And had I been more financially aware, I would almost certainly not have taken the job. But in reality, I was a motivator, a man manager, and probably a decent salesman. But in terms of the depth of a businessman that you need to be, I was still very, very wet behind the ears, and equally, this was a business at the time which had lost half its turnover. It was venture capital owned, by the way, so it was my introduction to the venture capital world, and they had bought a pretty decent business, but it was right at the end of the 80s, early 90s recession. And I think when they bought it, it was pretty decent. It was owned by a couple of engineering entrepreneurs who they moved out the business immediately, which is a mistake in itself and something I learned from, and introduced this accountant as a management buy-in. And it was horrendous. It was in a horrendous condition. But I was ignorant to it, you see. So it was, for me, it was about big salary, great car, kind of open play, really. Just get it sorted out. But it was losing £2.5 to £3 million a year, and that was on about 7 million turnover. So what I quickly realised, mainly by the help of this mentor guy called John Parkinson, who had also been put in by a finance guy in his own right, but a much broader character than that. He just got me, kind of gave me immense guidance and direction, and bit by bit, $500,000 by $500,000, we reversed the losses and got some additional reinvestment, produced a new product range, and then went to town on sales and sold it 8-9 years later to the DeKernig Group for a significant amount of money, getting everyone out in the process. So that was a whole huge learning curve. And John was like my business father, I guess you'd call him. I was very close, very, very close to John. It was really sad. I was really quite upset when he passed away. But he was an adventurer as well. So he would go to the Arctic and I think I've still to this day, I've still got a bit of that.
Yeah, embodied him a bit.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he and in fact, sadly, we were off to the Arctic together. What year would this be? It would be kind of mid 96, 97, something like that. We'd scheduled this plan to go to the Arctic, dog sledding in the Arctic, and sadly he passed away and couldn't make it. So I ended up going on my own, and it was both one of the hardest and most rewarding trips I've ever done. It was a magnificent trip, kind of trip you enjoy more when you're back.
Yeah. In hindsight.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say John, and then in addition to that, Clement de Meersman, who was the group CEO of DeKernig at the time we were acquired. He was very generous to me, both in his friendship, I guess, and his guidance, because obviously I'd never integrated a business into a major corp at that time, and he was. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I obviously made some mistakes, but he was very supportive, and we became very good, and we're still friends to this very day. In fact, I'm due to go over to visit him. So yeah, I'd say those two were the two big influences on my career.
Nice. And you spoke about, resurrecting companies and stuff, but is there been other sort of proud moments, both personally and sort of from a, company point of view over the years that you want to talk about?
I think I'd have to go back to status, really.
Yeah.
I think turning that, albeit, this wasn't single-handed by any means. I had a lot of help. John Parkinson aside, I had a lot of help. We pulled in a friend of John's, actually, a guy called Mike Henderson, who was remarkably helpful. I tell you what did happen, though. We were so tight for cash, so tight. I mean, I have to say, probably was it not for the fact that we had a venture capitalist behind us, the bank would have foreclosed. I mean, we weren't even servicing the senior debt. We had $5.5 million of senior debt, and that hadn't been serviced for 6-9 months before I joined.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the venture capitalists had seen enough in us to give us to give them a fighting chance of getting there, at least getting their money back. So they invested a further 1.2 million, I think it was. We did loads of deals with suppliers, and bit by bit we turned it round. And as I say, I think we went from a 2.5 million loss at our worst to a 6.5 million profit
Wow.
over 8 years. And I think it's probably 96, 95, 96 when we realised that we were kind of surging forward then. And that was the time that I actually started GM Fundraising as well. So it kind of almost, I would say my real career and my real charity fundraising career started about the mid '90s, and they all almost went hand in hand.
Nice. Yeah, we'll
Uh,
definitely move on to GM fundraising because I think probably a lot of people that are listening probably know you more for that now than they ever done from sort
yeah,
of you working in the glazing sector as such.
well, it's been the one constant, hasn't it? For 30 years in of fundraising, it's been the one constant where I've kind of moved around professionally, I guess, albeit that I've had Central for 10 years. I mean, before that, it was like go and put that right 3 or 4 years, go and find something to buy, turn it round, or whatever we've got to do with it. And so it was, more or less after I moved from Dekernik, it was more or less 3 or 4 years everywhere I went. And really, I guess in terms of skill set, that's what I'm best at, turning things around and getting things going in the right direction, and then building the team to carry on with it. And then, well, I'm pretty redundant now, so let's let's go on to the next one. And in fact, we would have moved central a lot quicker than we did, but for COVID.
Yeah.
We would have probably been 2 or 3 years earlier than we were, but for COVID. But I think we've all got stories about that, haven't we?
Yeah,
So.
definitely. Yeah, and before we move on to speaking about GM fundraising, like how does the sector look from your perspective now? You know, you're in it still, and you've had a very successful career, like you said, in it. How is it looking from your perspective? You know, we're at the end of the year now, so it's always time to sort of take stocks. But yeah, how does it look from Central's point of view and from your point of view, having spent this long in the industry now?
Um, well, as much as I can say about Central would be that um, they're doing pretty well, actually. In fact, I'd say paradoxically, they're doing so well that they're probably messing customers about a little bit with service now because they're just not able to cope. Um, and part of the reason for that is because the guys just don't want to work overtime because they're earning enough money, aren't they? But we won't get political. But so they're coping pretty well, Central. What I would say though is that they have lost a lot of business in terms of customers not spending as much and one or two going bust. So if we looked at the names that were around 2 years ago and looked at the names that are around now, there'll be quite a lot of new business, and then that's testimony to Martin Elwell, who's the sales director, and his sales team. Really, they've done an absolutely outstanding job. I'd also say I think the shape of our customers has changed a little bit. I can remember when we bought it, in PVC anyway, when we bought it, I'd say 10% of our business was 8 to 10% was commercial. And I would say 75, 80% of it was white product, basic white product. 10 years later, I'd say commercial is probably 30 to 35% of our business. And coloured product is or let me say just white standard product is probably 60, 65%. We do an unbelievable amount of colour. Hence, one of the reasons we moved to Dekerning because
Yeah. And do you see that trend continuing, as we go into next year where it's going to be sort of more color, more commercial, that's the way to sort of get through this tough period?
I would say we're not terribly strategic in that respect. We kind of, Central's been around a long time, and they have despite the odd blip here and there, they have a pretty good reputation.
Yeah,
And it's a very stable management team. And I think one of the mistakes that a lot of businesses make is they chop and change people all the time. And I think one of the things that Central's always had going for is that the team's been very, very stable. If you
yeah,
look at the current team, they're all, I think the longest is 23, 24 years, and the shortest is probably 7 or 8
nice.
in the senior and midline management team. So it's a very stable team. I would say also that we've, as I say, we've not been terribly strategic. We've been more reactive, and we're doing more commercial, not particularly because we've gone after commercial. It's because our customers
Yeah,
have gone after commercial, because of course we don't install. So I think that's a result of that. Our customers have gone for, well, some of them anyway, have gone for growth via commercial,
okay,
and so obviously we've ended up picking up the volume from that.
yeah,
So I would say they're probably on course to be a little bit bigger than last year, 3 or 4% maybe. That'll possibly be mopped up in price rather than volume. And it has been, there's been some tough moments. We had a significant bad debt in January. There has been some challenges. It's not been plain sailing.
yeah,
And talking to people in the sector, I think thankfully, we're one of the better off businesses in that respect, because I know many people are down.
yeah,
But look, it's all swings and roundabouts. I've been through all this before.
yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah,
The late '80s, the early '90s, the 2007 crash. If you were, if you're sensible enough with your money, and you keep some in the, you keep plenty enough in the bank, you can ride these storms. And of course, not all companies can do that and are that, and they go by the wayside. But the volume's still there, so if you can get through it, you're picking up volume, aren't you? So I think that's probably one of the reasons they're doing okay. And I think it's inevitable that consolidation will continue. That where groups can't find organic growth, they'll buy the growth.
nice. And lastly, you've, like you said, before we move on to GM fundraising, you've had a very good career in our industry. So if someone come up to you, which I'm sure they do, and want to know more about the industry and getting into the industry or being a success in our industry, would you recommend it to someone?
Oh yeah, because I still believe it's a sector which gives an average, and I am the archetypical example of this. Gives an average Joe who's prepared to risk and work hard and not seek immediate
Yeah,
rewards. I think one of the dangers really is that youngsters today expect it all to happen straight away,
overnight.
don't
Yeah,
they? They live in this Instagram world of instant gratification and
yeah,
instant success, and us older ones realise that it's just not like that. You have to put plenty of sweat equity into things before that you get the rewards. And I've been really upset and hurt on a couple of occasions where I've done that, and then for whatever reason I didn't get the just rewards, and as I say, I've been very upset about it all. But you can't afford to stay like that for too long. You've got to just get back on the horse
yeah.
and get
Go
going
again.
again.
Yeah,
So I fear a little. There's probably more youngsters coming into it than we realise, but I just wonder if they've got the staying power. But I do think it tends to give people good opportunities.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and speaking of those opportunities, yeah, like we said, we'll go on to GM fundraising. 30 years it's been a constant in your life or most of your life. But where did that come from? Where did the idea originate from?
Well, it's pretty much like how I got into the sector. I guess it wasn't anything that was planned and so on. But I'd going back to Thermosil, for example, I'd always done bits or as much as I could, let's
Yeah,
say, for charity. Despite the fact I'm very much a family man, I'm not that fond of Christmas. Might be a bit different this year because we've had lots of grandkids.
Amazing.
But so I would, in my younger days, take myself off. Wes Kendrick, who I mentioned earlier, was the technical director at Thermosil at the time, was also a Salvationist. He played
Okay.
brass in the Salvation Army.
Yeah.
And on Christmas Day, they bring all the Meals on Wheels people and the homeless and what have you. They bring them all in and serve them a meal, give them a present. They all used to watch the Queen's speech and get up and salute and do all that. So my job on that day, and it started very early, 9 o'clock in the morning, preparing the food, the setting the tables, and then let me tell you, there'd be 80 or 90 people. It wasn't a small thing, and then we prep the food. Then we'd go out and pick people up, give them a mince pie and a cup of tea when they got there, and so on and so forth. And I really enjoyed that. I have to say, I really enjoyed that. Then I'd go back to Karen's mum and dad's, and I'd eat my Christmas dinner on my own at about 7 o'clock at night. But I got a lot of satisfaction out of that. And then, I've done bits and pieces, thrown myself out of a plane, and then we did a little bit when I was at Premier. When we started Premier up in Doncaster, we did a little bit for the local children's home. We took them into Sheffield on a coach, and then we took them to Little Chef for the lights, and then we took them to a Little Chef for something to eat and gave them a little gift. And me and a fellow director, Russell Hume, used to fund it. We used to fund it personally.
Yeah.
So he'd done stuff like that, and wherever, if somebody would say to me, "You fancy running 10K?" Well, believe it or not, I was really quite fit when I was young because I played a lot of football.
Yeah.
So 10K wasn't a terrible challenge to me then, but it would be like an Iron Man to me now. But so he said stuff like that, and then one day, and this is where the story does get interesting. I was contacted. I had a letter come through the post to work, and it was from Her Majesty's Prison. Anyway, a customer of mine had been placed on remand there for importing drugs. I won't mention his name because I wouldn't want to embarrass him. But and he'd written to me to say, "Can you come and visit me?" So I went to visit him, and mainly out of intrigue, actually, because I'd never been in a prison, of course. And I have to say, the guy had always been good with me. He'd never given me any problems, and he'd spent a lot of money with us, always paid us, and he was very honourable in that respect. And of course, he was claiming the fact that he'd been set up, and he hadn't, but he said he had. And he'd heard this appeal for an organisation called Zoe's Place, which is based in Liverpool, and it's a babies' hospice. Still exists, actually. It's a babies' hospice, and they were trying to raise £5,000 for a light sensory room for the babies.
Yeah,
when I say it's a babies' hospice, so these are children which have been defined as being life limited. So I said, "Oh yeah, we can do that. We can try and raise some money. I don't know, we can raise £5,000." And our PR girl at the time, a girl called Kate Ashley Norman, said to me, "Why don't we have a gala dinner? Why don't we put a gala dinner on?" So I thought that sounds a good idea. So she said, "You got loads of mates. We can sell tables, black tie, put a disco and a band on. Good night of food and merriment, and that really was the beginning of this connecting people that we've kind of stayed with." And we bought it together we set up the operation in 1995, hence 30 years. The dinner was actually in 1996. And we charged £500 a table of 10, so £50 a head.
Yeah.
And we wanted to raise 5,000, obviously. That was the purpose of it. It was at the Grand Hotel in Birmingham. It sold out pretty quickly. It was a bit of an effort, but it did sell out pretty quickly. And then once we'd sold it, we had to invoice people because they wanted to pay through the business.
Yeah.
Well, we hadn't got a bank account. So I went to the bank to open a bank account, And the girl behind the counter, who I knew actually, but she said, "Well, what do you want to call it?" I said, "I haven't even thought of it. I never gave it a thought.
Yeah.
I thought, well, what can we call it? Fenestration, windows, this or whatever." And she said, "Well, look, just call it GM Fundraising. Just use your initials. Just call it GM Fundraising for now,
No.
and get the account open. Then if you want to change it later on, you can."
Yeah.
Well, either through kind of laziness or ignorance or whatever, I don't know, we never got round to changing it.
Amazing.
So that's what it became, and we raised 17,000
Wow.
just over 17,600 quid rather than the five. So more importantly, and I think this has been indoctrinated in all the people involved in GMF. The major thing we feel we had to do was give people a good time,
Yeah.
and we didn't want them thinking, we were in the pockets as soon as they walked into the room.
Yeah.
So we went really hard on making sure that we provided really good entertainment, good communications. They knew exactly where it was, how to get there, where to park, how to book it, and all of it. Because in our sector, you have to keep telling them 3 or 4 times before it sinks in. And I'm the same as well, by the way. But and so that event was a real success. Everybody enjoyed it, and a lot of, I think, email was just kind of taking off at the time.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of letters and a lot of emails saying, "Oh, you've got to do another one next year. You've got to do another one next year." So we did.
Yeah.
But we had to find somebody to do it for. So we were struggling with that. So we did it for Birmingham Children's Hospital. And I think the second one we raised 23,000.
Wow.
And then they just ran on then, and we found Acorns Children's Hospices, and then subsequently Hope House,
Yeah.
who we completely fell in love with and have been with kind of ever since, really. So that's how it started.
Nice. And there's been, you've done some amazing, like you said, raised a lot of money first of all, but done a lot of amazing events, and even stuff down to the golf days, which I know are like uber popular within our sector. But have there been any events from your point of view you thought, wow, this is a good event, or a something you've done that you've gone, wow, this is pretty cool to be doing this for, not only for yourself but from fundraising as well?
I would say all of the firsts. So the first dinner
Yeah.
is highly memorable, of course. The first golf day, which wasn't the golf day per se wasn't a terribly rich fundraiser.
Yeah.
But again, it connected everybody, and it was almost like a sprat for a mackerel, really. So we had a couple of hundred runners and riders at the golf day,
Yeah.
and they were all fairly influential people, or they booked the teams, and they invited customers. So we were spreading the word with the golf. So again, we weren't terribly concerned about making a lot of money because it was a bigger picture. So all of the firsts, I would say, the first ride, the first dinner, the first ride, the first golf day, the first GMF Cup, the first ladies event. The ladies event was absolutely spectacular. For the first event to raise what they raised was absolutely remarkable. So yeah, I'd say all of the first events were memorable. On the other side of it, a memorable event but for the wrong reasons was, in my mind anyway, was the 2008 ride across America, where we went from San Diego to Atlantic City, a ride of just under 3,200 miles. And we'd done the 2005 ride, and which was John O'Groats to Land's End, which is, it's a well-worn path, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of brains to pick. You can get the thing right because you've picked a lot of brains to get there. And we had a guy called Alan McDougall who knew it very well, and he trained us, and he'd been heavily involved in the routing and supporting the ride as well. So we were well looked after on that one. Going to the other side of the world, to the west coast of America, which in itself was a mistake because we should have done it the other way around. And making the mistake of having 3 teams supported by 2 RVs. and then losing one of them on the first day. So we had 16 people, one RV, trying to get from one side of America to the other. On top of that, we had degrees well into the high 30s, and that's what we were riding in. And none of us had been able to kind of acclimatise, or it's not like we were there for a week before we started. We got there one day, we started the next day. So that was a real kick in the pants. And it reminds me in some respects of status. So the camaraderie that it created, though, because of the challenges we were faced with, we learned a lot of lessons very quickly. And as I say, the camaraderie at Status saw us through all the successes that we had thereafter. And I would say that 2008 ride taught us a lot of lessons, and the camaraderie we had, and the really people really digging deep and helping other people out, and so on and so forth, was a reason. And it was a big, at the time, we raised 98,000 quid, 92,000 quid on that ride. And that's the most we'd ever raised on any event. And so that was very rewarding. And we learned all these lessons, and we thought, well, we must do another one.
Yeah. Do you think it's a recurring theme throughout your career that we're obviously, we're the PiGs, sort of, we're massively advocates of people, but you've said it in previous questions about the people that you've had around you to build successful businesses, and then the same with GM Fundraising. It's been so much about people around you, and the things that you've done that have made your thing, your whatever you've done, success.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, and if you speak to any of the teams at GM Fundraising, and I absolutely hate plaudits for a number of reasons. One, because there's so many more people involved.
Yeah.
That okay, it's my name on the door, but that they don't get the credit they deserve. I mean, they get it from me, publicly, but they don't get what they deserve. And so I feel a bit of a sham because of that. I also feel a sham, a bit of a crook, really, in many respects, because I've done so many things and seen so many things and achieved so many things and had so many adventures and made so many friends because of all the charity work.
Yeah.
That I feel a bit of a charlatan because I've got so much out of it. Even business, I've got no question that all the charity work that has connected people to me and to other people in the organisation, we've all had success with each other on interacting with our competitors or our potential customers or suppliers, or there's no question in my mind that the biggest side benefit of all of this is how it's connected people, and that's the one thing I'll miss more than anything. It's the one thing I'm saddest about. But it's and that, we've had several different teams over the years at GM Fundraising. There's been 2 or 3 constants, but we've had people come in and come out, and come in and come out, like on the periphery and stuff like that. But the main kind of core of people have always kind of been there or thereabouts. And it's the same with business, it's the old football manager thing where you get the sack, or you've run your course with that club. You go to that club and you bring all the coaches and all the fitness coaches and the physios. You bring all the team with you, don't you? So it's been a little bit like that, I guess. But no, the people I've had around me they've just been unbelievable, and with far less credit, as I say.
Yeah. Do you? I guess now probably is the perfect time. But have you ever sort of stepped back and thought what you and the team and teams have done over the years? Just how much you've raised for obviously a lot of good charities that have got a lot of money because of you and everyone that's helped.
Well, I'm very much part of Hope House. I've been a trustee on the board of trustees for the last 5 years, and I've just dedicated quite a bit more time to them as well. I'm going to take on quite a bit more responsibility there because obviously I'm a volunteer, so there's no cost to it, and that's for me that's fabulous, and it's a wonderful place. But have I? I mean, what's always astonished me is the generosity of the sector. You know, despite all those downward dips, it's never wavered. We've just raised more every year. We've just raised more and more and more and more. So, in fact, I think our biggest year was just under £300,000.
Unbelievable.
It's staggering, isn't it?
Yeah.
Staggering. You've got to remember as well, 2.4, I think 2.46 million quid, which is fabulous, of course. But the first 10, 12 years, I bet we'd only raised about £250,000.
Mm.
So the bulk of that came in the last 10 feet. I would say since the bike rides, actually.
Yeah.
That they were the big money raisers. And I know you've got a question further down which says, why have you brought it to an end? And I think we've all grown together, and equally we've all grown old together. And I mean, COVID hasn't helped, of course, or didn't help, of course, but the riders, we're all of similar age, and many of them have retired. Whilst I haven't retired per se from the sector anyway, I've given up full time work. I don't work full time. So we've all kind of come within 3 to 5 years. We've all, or most of us, have come to that conclusion in our journey, if
A
you
natural
like.
end.
Yeah. Well, it was, and the only thing that's really survived is the GMF Cup, which of course is golf, which we can all play for another 10, 15 years. And that's a good, we raised £57,000 on the last GMF Cup. So that's something that a couple of people involved in it might want to pick up, and I'll help. If I can give them help, I'll help them, of course. I've got all the contacts, for the hotels and the courses and whatever. So yeah, it's given me a lot. I would say, George, it's just given me a lot more than I have given it.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way.
And speaking of that help, like you said, you'd help out people for next year. Our very own Sarah Ball is a person that you've helped, countless times, and she aims to help you as much as she possibly can. But how does it feel to not only be raising the money for the charity, but actually to sort of be giving, the next round of people the fundraisers of the future, and now, that your words of wisdom or how to do things? Like, how does it feel to be, that sort of words of wisdom and voice of the fundraising sector within our sector?
Well, I think it's important if you can. It's a mantra I've held for a long time. That for me, if you can help somebody, and it's not at any great time or financial huge cost, and even then, if it's a good cause, that's even not such a bad thing. But if you can help somebody and they're good people and they've got the best intentions, then why wouldn't you? And you talk about Sarah, and Sarah's been connected to GM for me. She did the First Ladies event. She sounds like the wife of the American president there, doesn't she? The First Ladies event, but she did that event. She supported GM Fundraising for years before that. Doing things at the Fit Show and stuff like that, and even doing things at PiGs evenings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Promoting events and stuff like that. So, I'm very mindful of that. And if, for me, she's helped me, so if I can help her or we can help her, then why wouldn't you? And I've held that mantra for business and charity, that why wouldn't people help somebody if they could? It's just because it comes back, doesn't it? What goes around comes around, kind of thing. And I've had a lot of people that's helped me, so it's paying it forward, yeah. Pay it forward.
Yeah. And, what advice would you give to someone that's maybe thinking about doing a fundraiser next year, big or small? Do you say absolutely go for it? There's no, don't hold back?
Yeah, I would say, of course, I'd say that you don't be half a pint with it. If you're going to do it, you need to commit to it.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to do it with passion. You can't. Don't do it because you think it might bring you some good. Do it for the
Yeah.
right reasons,
Absolutely.
and believe me, you'll get a lot of good from it. But don't have that as the purpose, because people see through it. People aren't idiots either. They'll
No.
see through it. And commit to it and give it everything you've got. Don't let it fail up because you didn't give everything to
Yeah.
it.
Nice. And moving on to the future, like you said, it's not a goodbye from the industry or from sort of the fundraising aspect of things. But yeah, what's next for you?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm certainly giving a lot more time to the um, kids at Hope House and the
Yep.
families at Hope House and the team there. And my intention is to to give that a real good go certainly over the next 5 years, which is what I've committed to. Um, I'm open, really, any kind of non-exec kind of role. I'm still involved at Central, so I don't suppose, although it'll only be for another 18 months, but I don't suppose I'd be too fond to be working with another big fabricator, because obviously there's a conflict of interest,
Yep.
isn't there? Although I wouldn't, I wouldn't utilise that, but so anything really, or nothing. I've got 5 grandkids. I've had 5 grandkids in 3 years,
Nice.
and I've only got 2 girls as well. So
Yeah.
so to kind of put some meat on that bone. Both our daughters had twins
Wow.
within 13 months of each other.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you're giving back to a different thing now with family life and yeah, helping those grow up.
Oh yeah, it's I think for anybody that is a grandparent, they'll know what I'm going to say. It's absolutely magical.
Yeah.
It's exhausting as well, I might add, but it's magical. And Karen, my wife, she's such a natural. She's so great at it.
Amazing.
Uh, she's marvelous, and the girls rely on her heavily, as you can imagine. But we're blessed. We're very fortunate,
Yeah.
very blessed. So they take up time. I'm still around. I get not lots, but I get a number of calls from, "What do you think about this? What do you think about that?" type of thing. And I'm around. I'm available. I'm certainly going to the gym a lot more than I was, thankfully. I'm playing golf a lot more than I was, although I haven't played for a couple of months now because of the weather.
Yeah.
Um, but I intend to play a bit more golf and trying to stay connected maybe to the industry through golf, because there's a lot of people play golf in the industry, isn't there?
Yeah.
So I'm very happy to stay connected in one way or another. But if I'm not, then I've got plenty of things to do.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
fact,
Yeah.
I was saying to Karen at the weekend, I just seem to. You got to remember, before I sold the business, I was taking a lot of time out of the business anyway.
Yeah.
I'm probably busier now than I've been for the last couple of years, which is crazy, isn't it? Absolutely
Yeah.
crazy. And strangely as well, I've never been an early riser. I've always been kind of pretty nocturnal in the sector. And because it's such a social sector, it lends itself to that,
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
But the last couple of years, I've been getting up at the crack of bloody dawn, and age, whatever, I don't know. But so I'm going to bed much earlier than I used to, and getting up much earlier than I used
Yeah.
to. So
Nice. Well, thanks very much, Gary, for the main part of the podcast. So we're going to move on to our quick fire question round now. So it's as you've seen previous episodes, it's just I'll ask the question, one word, one sentence answer, and first thing that comes to your head. So
blimey, I could get caught out of it.
oh no, you'll be fine. The first question we always ask is, do you prefer talking over email or by phone?
Oh, by phone. No, by phone. Person, phone, this. Yeah, yeah, much. Well, I think it depends, if I can qualify that. It's a lesson learned, this. So I think it depends whether anything, although you can do it afterwards, whether anything you discussed needs confirming in an email, because you said, I said, they said, we said kind of thing. But generally, no, I much prefer the phone.
Nice. I think you answered this in the main pass, but are you the first person in the office or the last one out?
It depends what element of my career you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think in my early career, I was probably one of the last out and
Yeah.
last in and last out. I think more recently, when we bought Central, certainly for the first 4 or 5 years, I was definitely the first in and the last out. But when we got it into some reasonable profit,
Yeah.
it relaxed a little bit.
Nice.
But I would say overall, probably last in, last out.
Nice. What's your go-to comfort food? Have you got a particular cuisine or meal that you'd have if you could?
I'd say if we're out to fish, and if we're in, I do. Karen does a really good Nando's, so which is like a it's like it doesn't move. It's always that level. And I really enjoy Italian food. Italian food is my favourite food.
Nice.
It's
What's your favorite thing to do outside of work?
again that would change in different parts of the career, but my favourite thing to do, crikey.
Is it golf now? Golf's your thing to do?
Well, the grandkids, grandkids, I suppose. And yeah, I would say golf as well, but not particularly because of the golf, but because of the friendships and the social interaction, really. But myself and Karen, we go out a lot. We've got a big group of friends that, many of which are connected to the sector. So we have got a really good social thing going on.
Nice. And if there's, a person that you would swap roles with it for a day within our industry, is there anyone you thought, actually, I'd love to do what they do, whether it's, for an easy ride for a day or for someone that, has a good, enjoyable job that gets you to somewhere that you might not have in your career?
I'm trying to think of a specific person, but I would say that travel's always been a big thing in my
Yeah.
life, whether that's within the UK or outside of the UK. And I would say anybody that would be in a role which involved travelling, but allowed time for more than work when you got there.
Yeah.
For example, when I was at DeKernick, I ran their UK operation, the collective group in the UK, which obviously doesn't exist now. But they had a thing where 4 times a year they did an MD's meeting somewhere in the world.
Nice.
So either in Europe or America, or one of the business units would host it, and so on. But they were really smart, in my opinion. So you worked hard when you were there, but they always allowed a couple of days of, they'd take you on some tourism visits, and you got to see the place that you were in. And they were very sociable. They're great. They were a great. Well, I think they still are a great organisation.
Yeah.
So they were fabulous like that. Yeah.
Nice.
So anything that would involve travel, I guess.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. For our last part of the podcast, we'd like to get our guests to give a shout out. It can be to people in the industry, out of the industry, friends, family, you name it. So yeah, who are your shout out or shout outs for?
Well, really, the whole sector. Really, this too will pass. This barren element of what we're going through will pass. Stick with it. Work hard. Keep going. Get your head down. Keep pushing hard. And the stronger ones and the more determined ones will come through it all and be successful. So good luck to you all. Good luck to you.
Nice. Well, thanks very much, Gary, for joining us on Two Pigs in a Pod today. It's been great to hear about obviously your career firstly, but also, the 30 years of GM fundraising and what the future might hold for you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
So that's it for today. You can find Gary's episode on all our others on our YouTube channel at People in Glazing Society, on our website www.peopleinglazing.co.uk, and also available to download on Amazon Music, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And whilst you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. So once again, thanks to Gary for joining us, and see you again soon.